themicroeffect.com.
Crazy dream about some folks who love this country, who all began to dream the same dream. And when the morning came, there arose across this nation people thinking one and the same. And they awoke to find their freedoms and all their liberties had gradually been taken away. When they realized the danger to their posterity, I heard those patriotic people say, we want this country back. We ain't just joking, Jack. We want our liberty and our dignity and our freedoms and our rights restored. We want this country back. She's been driven way off track. We're wide awake and we're madder than hell now, and we ain't gonna take it anymore. No, we're not gonna take it anymore. Remember golden days when the stars and stripes forever symbolized her glorious name, America. But now it's all been changed, and when we gaze upon her glory, it's hard to fight back feelings of shame. We're fed up with lying politicians and greedy corporations who have sold us out time and again. And we're sick and tired of sending our soldiers off to wars that we were never meant to win. We want this country back. We ain't just joking, Jack. We want our liberty and our dignity and our freedoms and our rights restored. We want this country back. She's been driven way off track. We're wide awake and we're madder than hell now, and we ain't gonna take it anymore. No, we're not gonna take it anymore. Now we know our cause is right, and our victory's on the way, and we won't give up the fight till we hear 200 million say, we want this country back. We ain't just joking, Jack. We want our liberty and our dignity and our freedoms and our rights restored.
Folks, this is Maggie Rose, and this is the new Concord Hour being brought to you by the Microeffect Radio Broadcasting Network. And today's show is going to be with our former fire chief of Harney County, and Chris Briels. Chris, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
Hello, Chris. Chris, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you very good. You're moving. So I can hear something moving around in the background. Is that your laptop, Chris?
I might have moved the laptop. I had the headphones on, but evidently the microphone wasn't working.
Yeah, mine's not working very well either. Folks, again, you are now with the Microeffect Radio Broadcasting Network. This is the Concord Hour being brought to you Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 2 to 3 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 5 to 6 Eastern Standard Time. And we have Chris Briels, former fire chief of Harney County, Oregon, up in the Burns area. He's coming back for part 2. As you all know, we had him on last Thursday. We were talking about the FBI, their lies and their intimidation against the American people. And we understand that a lot of people have been going back and listening to the rebroadcast of the show, both on the Microeffect and also on YouTube. And Chris, I don't know if you're aware of it, but you've gotten close to 100 hits in the first 3 or 4 days of that being rebroadcast by Bonnie Klang there on YouTube. You can see it when you type in on YouTube I think what you can do is you can actually type in the New Concord Hour with Maggie Rose, and right away on YouTube you'll see the Microeffect radio broadcasting advertisement with the Minuteman standing off to the left, and it's basically trying to save our children from the tyranny of tomorrow. As we all know, Chris, the tyranny is going on in this country right now, and what I would like to do, with your permission, Chris, this morning when you and I spoke on the phone, I read to you an article. This is a newspaper that I understand goes all over the world. People in Australia are getting it, people in Hawaii, people in almost every single one of the states of the Union are receiving the Roseburg Beacon out of a little place called Roseburg, Oregon, because it happens to be one of the most conservative newspapers that really kind of shows both sides of what's going on. And unfortunately, so many of our newspapers are so far liberal, and they're obviously not showing both sides of the issue or showing the truth. And I think I've read your newspaper up there in Harney County, and I have noticed that your newspaper will not print the other side. Is that not correct?
That's true.
So I've been reading the newspaper from Harney County. I've seen that it's very biased. I've seen that it's very, very, so far liberal, it's going off the left side of the cliff. You read the Roseburg Beacon, which is a lot more conservative, but I've noticed that they also try to present both sides of a lot of issues. And from what I understand is that the Roseburg Beacon is being mailed out now to people all over the country. And they actually, it is 75 cents an issue, generally, if you purchase it like through the downtown at the stores or whatever. But I think for like less than $32, you get it for a whole year every week. And what I read to you today, I'd like, with your permission, to go ahead and read a portion of it right now. We'll have the link below the recording of this, where people can actually go there and get a copy of this if they want. Contact the Roseburg Beacon, because I think we're seeing a lot of what's going on in this country, and it's not being publicized, as you know, Chris, the way it should be. The front of the picture shows Obama leaning into Hillary Clinton and her whispering in his right ear. You see Norm Panetta is sitting behind them in the picture. And the article is written by Alex Newman, guest contributor. And the reason why this really bounced off the page at me, because I see what's going on here as what's happening up in Harney County. As you know, Chris, we were discussing about how Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General for the United States, who basically conferred everything to the FBI, and the FBI conferred everything over to her, and they chose between them not to indict Hillary. We believe that Hillary and or her husband, when he got up into that airplane and spoke to Loretta Lynch, basically warned her she had better or else. Now, we don't know. We can't prove that she was threatened or her family was threatened or that she was promised to have a job if Hillary gets into the White House. But we also know that something was done to intimidate the FBI Director Comey. And what you and I discussed last week was the lies of the FBI and intimidation. And we are also going to be discussing today about the FBI and what they are or are not doing. And as I just found out watching both CNN, believe it or not, CNN, and also by watching Fox News, I found out that the Department of Homeland Security, Johnson, is now concerned that things are going to get out of hand at the convention, at the Republican convention. Did you know, Chris, that the FBI agents, it has just been announced that the FBI agents were sworn to secrecy in the Hillary email probe, and that they were not supposed to have any concern for national security. And a lot of FBI agents right now are angry and they are upset because they believe that the elitists and the New World Order and people like Hillary are being allowed to get away with criminal behavior and actions. And so for these FBI agents that were part of the so-called investigation to be sworn to secrecy in the Hillary email probe obviously shows to us that the fox is in charge of the hen house and that the elitists believe that the rules are for everybody else, not for them. So there's no security review in this criminal investigation, and it's been a whitewash. Now, in this article, and I will read it by Alex Newman, who is the guest contributor to the Roseburg Beacon. I think the Roseburg Beacon is somewhere in Douglas County, Oregon. And it says here, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton are exploiting the killing of 5 police officers in Dallas to push a range of assaults on the U.S. Constitution, including a decades-old plot to federalize America's local police departments without any semblance of constitutional authority. In between subtly demonizing law enforcement officers as racist and touting the controversial Black Lives Matter movement, the two Democrat Party standard-bearers also seized on the Dallas police shootings to promote further infringements on the constitutionally protected right to keep and bear arms. Critics, though, including among America's police forces, blasted the Obama administration and its Hello, folks. This is Maggie Rose, and this is the New Concord Hour. Chris, are you with me?
Yeah, I'm here.
You know, what's very interesting, Chris, is the fact I am sitting in the same spot that I always sit in when I do my show, and my entire internet connection was up and running. And obviously, again, this has happened when we had Chris Ann Hall, if you remember, when she came up to do my show. And
Right.
They started messing with her and my Skype. She was in Arizona. The Microeffect is in Idaho. And I am in the Great Northwest. And it was interesting how right after she and I started doing the show, which she advertised she was coming on the New Concord Hour, for at least 3 weeks beforehand, that they crashed our system so she and I could not even do the show. From Arizona to Idaho to the Great Northwest. As you know, we've been warning people that you and I were coming up again today. And where my internet was working, my husband's internet is working, my computer was perfectly working, and yet the Skype got crashed. And I just suspect, what do you think?
Oh, I don't doubt that a bit. I've had that happen before when I've been on other radio shows. My Skype got corrupted. I had to delete it off the computer and start over again.
Yeah, well, they definitely don't want the message to go out. So let me try to start over where I was, okay? It says here the establishment plan to federalize and militarize America's state and local police forces has been underway for decades. In recent years, though, the Obama administration has pushed the agenda further and faster than ever. Among other schemes, the White House has used executive actions as well as bribe money, folks. The White House has used, quote, executive... Are you moving around, Chris?
A little bit.
Okay. It says here, among other schemes, the White House has used executive actions, quote unquote, as well as bribe money provided by Congress and threats of lawsuits to impose a wide range of unconstitutional federal guidelines, quote unquote, and controls on law enforcement. Some critics refer to the schemes as, quote, Common Core for police, unquote, a reference to the administration's abuse of federal bribes to impose the dumbed-down national standards on America's local school systems. The United Nations has even called, listen to this, Chris, the United Nations has even called on American police officers to obey what the United Nations boss, okay?
Yeah.
What the United Nations boss, Ban Ki-moon, that is his name, Ban Ki-moon has called upon the American police officers to use international standards. Under the U.S. Constitution, though, police powers were not delegated to the federal government. Just a moment here. I'm having a moment. Are you still with me, Chris?
Yep, I'm here.
Hello.
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay. Under the U.S. Constitution, those police powers were not delegated to the federal government. That means those powers are reserved to the states, communities, or the people, as made explicit in the 10th Amendment. As such, American law enforcement functions have generally been the responsibility of state, county, and local government. Hence, the close to 18,000 state and local law enforcement agencies across America. Under the American federalist system of self-government, those police forces have traditionally been funded and controlled by the local communities they're supposed to protect and serve, making them accountable to the elected leaders of those communities rather than to Obama. This system has served as a powerful check against centralized power, making any bid for full-blown national tyranny extremely difficult to impose. But the establishment wants to change all that and shackle American citizens under a national police force that serves not the local communities, but the out-of-control executive branch of the federal government. And with the latest incidents to exploit using two recent fatal shootings of officers, citizens by the police, and the massacre of the Dallas police officers, Obama and other federal supremacists are once again standing on dead bodies, working fiendishly to federalize American police departments. A plot that Obama and his minions have been working on with limited success so far for years. Now with the presumed Democrat presidential contender Hillary Clinton fully on board with the scheme, Obama is doubling down on his previous efforts. So I see that not much different than them bringing the FBI into Harney County in January. What say you to that, Chris?
Well, I agree. You know, I don't think that we needed the FBI here, but the FBI wanted to be here, and so here they came, and they messed up our county.
Now, do you believe that the FBI was there because they wanted to be there, or were they there because of the email traffic that we have intercepted that went between Governor Brown of Oregon and the White House, Obama, and his right-hand, Valerie Garrett? We know that Obama and Bill Gates and Hillary Clinton, who has uranium-1, she's in bed with them, that they wanted to be able to take the properties and lands of ranchers and farmers, and therefore, because of the resources under these ranch lands, so being the fact that the Federal Reserve, they consider it to belong to the BLM, they felt justified in bringing the FBI in.
That's correct. That's what they think. The BLM can't own ground.
Now, do you remember the videotapes that we have seen on YouTube? And I know they've tried to take them down before, but I actually watched where they were giving some kind of a presentation to a BLM employee, and she was getting ready to go on to another job, and they were having a dinner party, and they were celebrating and showing a chart on a blackboard of how many people's private properties they've managed to grab away from the private citizens.
I remember it well. It's on YouTube. It's called Government Employee Brags About Stealing Lands.
Now, can you give us that URL?
URL?
Yes, that means www. Wherever it is on YouTube.
Well, what I did is I searched government employee brags about stealing lands, and I came up with it. I just reposted it on my Facebook, on Chris Briels on Facebook. I just reposted it on my page.
Okay, so then what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and have you send that to me either here on Skype or also to my private email address. And when Bonnie Clay posts this show up for the people to listen to that like the Microeffect, then we'll make sure people can go to that URL and they can see it on YouTube. Now, are you aware, Chris, that also in this article that I have here, it says, speaking on July the 9th in Poland, after a recent NATO summit there, Obama touted his lawless task force on so-called 21st century policing, which was created via his executive order last year in the wake of Ferguson chaos that was actually fueled by billionaire and Obama ally, who is a Rothschild protege, George Soros. He said, quote, I want to start moving on constructive actions that are actually going to make a difference because that is what all Americans want, unquote. Obama declared, who was falsely suggesting that all Americans agree with his extremist agenda to usurp control over the local police forces in our communities and in our states. The so-called actions he referred to involve opposing the illegal recommendations offered by his illegal task force, including national standards for police. And we all know that Hillary Clinton has been pushing the same agenda. And in an interview for ABC, for example, Clinton argued that we, quote unquote, need to, quote, put place guidelines to ensure that every police officer understands what is expected of him or her. So a routine traffic stop and a routine arrest escalating to the point where a gun is drawn and a life is lost. Clinton rambled on, quote, that's why I'm absolutely calling for national guidelines about the use of force. Every single one of our police officers should be trained and restrained in understanding how to avoid force. But of course, in the real world, police officers are already trained and retrained in how to avoid using force if and when possible. So what I see going on here, Chris, is another tyrannical overreach of the federal government under the United Nations and under the head of the United Nations, who wants all police officers and law enforcement around the world, including the United States, to come under UN control. Do we agree?
Well, that's what they think that we should have, but that's not what people want.
No, and it really upsets me, Chris, to see Hillary and Obama presuming that they know what the American people want. What they're actually telling us is this is what we want for you guys, so we can exert more control and more slavitude over you, the little people. You know, they consider the middle class and the poor to be we, the little people. Well, they think that they are better than we are, Chris.
I understand that, but they've all got two arms and two legs just like the rest of us.
Yeah, well, when they're eating on their gold-plated dinner dishes and living behind their gated communities and, you know, eating their caviar, drinking their fine wines and everything, they do have a superiority attitude towards those people that do not move in the same circles as they do. So therefore, they really do not have any respect for the majority of the people in this country or even around the world.
I understand that.
So what's going on in Harney County right now, when we look at people talking about Black Lives Matter, we look at the fact that it was on the news last night that over the last year, over 3,000 people have been murdered in Chicago, where Obama is from. We never hear Obama or Hillary or any of their people talking that Chicago has the worst murder rate than anywhere in the nation, and that's where he's from. But he won't address it. And many times the crime is black on black. So when we talk about black people being shot in the back, what about white people like Lavoie being shot in the back?
Well, it's people being shot. It shouldn't matter whether it's black or white or red or yellow or green. It's people shooting people.
Now, when we look at what's going to be taking place in the Republican convention, we're hearing that George Soros has basically hired government actors to go in there to the Republican convention and raise bedlam. We understand that the new Black Panther movement are going to be going there armed, many of them with concealed weapons. Do we not see that what's happening is people like George Soros and Hillary Clinton and those, they're going to keep their hands out of it to make it look like their hands are clean. But I think what they're wanting to do is create such an incident around this country that the closer that Trump may get to winning the presidency, they're going to try to cause an incident to bring the election to a stop and be able to declare officially martial law. That's what many people are afraid of, that they may not allow this election to go to its conclusion.
That's kind of scary.
Yes, it is. Well, we're going to come back after the station break, Chris. And I would like you, please, to give the listeners your thoughts on what happened in Harney County and where we're going. And regarding the FBI and people like Obama and Hillary basically trying to put the American people under a sort of slavery if we're not already there. So we'll be right back, folks. This is former Fire Chief Chris Briels out of Harney County and your host, Maggie Rose, and we'll be right back on the other side of the hour.
The greatest country in the world.
Well, our Constitution is a masterpiece. James Madison was a genius. The Declaration of Independence is, for me, the single greatest piece of American writing.
What about the people? Why is it
not the greatest country in the world, Professor? That's my answer. The NEA is a loser. Yeah, it accounts for a penny out of her paycheck, but he gets to hit you with it anytime he wants. It doesn't cost money. It costs votes. It costs airtime, column inches. You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose. If liberals are so smart, how come they lose always? Hey, and with a straight face, you're going to tell students that America is so star-spangled awesome that we're the only ones in the world who have freedom? Canada has freedom. Japan has freedom. The UK, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, Australia, Belgium has freedom. So 207 sovereign states in the world, like 180 of them have freedom. All right. And yeah, you, sorority girl, just in case you accidentally wander into a voting booth one day, there's some things you should know. One of them is there is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality, 3rd in median household income, number 4 in labor force, and number 4 in exports. We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita, number of adults who believe angels are real, and defense spending, where we spend more than the next 26 countries combined, 25 of whom are allies. Now, none of this is the fault of a 20-year-old college student, but you nonetheless are, without a doubt, a member of the worst generation ever. So when you ask what makes us the greatest country in the world, I don't know what you're talking about. Sure used to be. We stood up for what was right. We fought for moral reasons. We passed laws, struck down laws for moral reasons. We waged wars on poverty, not poor people. We sacrificed. We cared about our neighbors. We put our money where our mouths were, and we never beat our chest. We built great big things, made ungodly technological advances, explored the universe, cured diseases, and we cultivated the world's greatest artists and the world's greatest economy. We reached for the stars, acted like men. We aspired to intelligence. We didn't belittle it. It didn't make us feel inferior. We didn't identify ourselves by who we voted for in the last election, and we didn't scarce so easy. We were able to be all these things and do all these things because we were informed by great men who were revered. First step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one. America is not the greatest country in the world anymore.
Serving the facts, the Microeffect. www.themicroeffect.com.
Maggie Rose, and this is the new Concord Hour. We're back at the other side of the hour with former Fire Chief Chris Briels, and we're talking about what's been going on up in Harney County and his views what's happening with what happened in Harney County when the FBI were asked by Governor Kate Brown and her friend Obama. Now, if you all remember, Obama was the one, President Obama, they call him the president. I don't think he's been acting like a president. He was the one that actually made sure that she was the governor of Oregon, that she took over when our former governor had to vacate the office. And he was very proud of himself for having put Kate Brown in that position. Saw her a few weeks ago. I walked up and I whispered something in her ear. And she knows what I whispered in her ear. As far as I'm concerned, she's a traitor to the state of Oregon, to my family and myself that, from California all the way to Washington is where all of our family are located. And she's a traitor to everybody in this country. Just as she's the governor of Oregon does not mean that she's not a traitor to this entire country. She has been in bed with Obama and Hillary from the very beginning. And she was the one that asked Obama, as a favor, to bring the FBI here because she is friends with Hillary and Obama, and she knows very well what has been going on with the Hammonds, why the government do not want the Hammonds living where they are. They do not want the Bundys anywhere on their own property. They do not want Lavoie to not only not have his property, but not have any of the grazing rights surrounding his property. And they felt that by shooting and killing Lavoie, they had to take basically the head off the snake. Because Lavoie was very clear. He will die for the Constitution. He will not sit in prison and allow the federal government to continue to run ripshod with tyranny over this great country. Now, Chris, we know that the federal FBI, they should not have been in Harney County. This was not a federal case. Even if people try to say, the BLM is a federal agency, and their job is to be the steward of all of our lands. We disagree with that, don't we?
Yes, we are.
What do you understand the BLM or the federal government? What property in the United States does the federal government have the right to have command and control and to own? What property do they have the right to own?
Well, they can have 10 square miles like Washington, D.C., for the purpose of building forts and docks and magazines and post offices and stuff like that.
Okay.
The way that the federal government can have property is if it's okayed by the legislatures of the state. But the property is our property. It's the people.
Okay. And are you aware of in any time that the legislature in Nevada or Arizona or Oregon or California or Washington ever gave complete command and control over their property over to the federal government? I don't see anything in writing where they've done that.
I've never seen that document.
I haven't seen any of those documents. In fact, what I see the federal government saying is You guys can talk about the Constitution and, the federal Constitution that's sitting in Washington, D.C., but they don't seem to have any respect for the state constitutions either, do they?
No, they don't. They have their own agenda.
Okay, so when people talk about their constitutional rights, how many of the American people really understand what their constitutional rights really are?
Very, very few. It's been taken out of the schools to where they don't teach it the way they used to. They don't want us to know what our rights are.
Now, being the fact that they've taken it out of the schools, being the fact they don't want us to know what our rights are, isn't it interesting that Richard Vibrari, who is an American conservative political direct mail fundraiser and he's a writer, he said, and I quote, "The first duty of government is to protect the citizen from assault. Unless it does this, all the civil rights and civil liberties in the world aren't worth a dime." Now, when I read that, the first duty of government is to protect the citizen from assault. I consider government to be the local government, like your sheriff there in Harney County. I consider it to be the state government, like the Oregon State Troopers that came and took over your county. And I consider it the federal government, which is the FBI, either stood by or participated in the murder of Lavoie and the Bonnie and Clyde shooting of Lavoie's car that had another gentleman and two women held hostage as they were being shot at, and they never did return fire. And we know that based on Shauna Cox's phone, that when they came around the corner, they were already being fired upon. And there was an illegal blockade that was set up as they rounded the corner. And they were taking bullet fire as they rounded the corner. And then when they landed in the snow, they basically, as we call it, the car was Bonnie and Clyded. And according to the tow truck driver, the vehicle looks like Swiss cheese. So when we see here that the first duty of government, quote unquote, is to protect the citizen from assault, I do not see where your state, local government in Harney County, or even the federal government, where they did anything to protect the citizens from assault. It looks like it was a coordinated between the Oregon State Police, the Sheriff's Department, the FBI, and the so-called now secret mercenaries that we're not even supposed to know about that were there. And we don't know if it was the mercenaries' bullet that took out Lavoie or if it was the FBI's bullet that took out Lavoie. They're obviously keeping the names of those murderers under wraps, aren't they?
They're protecting them.
Did you know, Chris, that I just found out for you the other day, that everything revolving that case has been boxed up, packaged up, and sent to the White House, and Obama now has it under lock and key, and I don't mean to be, disrespectful, but where God himself can't even see it, and that it's a very, very top secret right to know about what really went down. So if that's not another whitewash, like what happened with the IRS, like what happened with Benghazi, like with Hillary indictments of not just the emails, but also of violating and criminal actions putting our national security at risk, why is it that the federal FBI, the Attorney General of the United States, why they're allowed to get away with things with impunity?
That's an awful good question.
Thoughts on this, please? Can we have your thoughts on this?
Yeah. Why should they be allowed to get away with everything? They shouldn't be. They should be held to the same standards as everyone else. They're not above the law. They just think they're above the law. And the reason for that is that the American people are too afraid to stand up and speak out. The American people need to start going to all of their council meetings, their county court meetings and those kinds of things so that their voice will be heard. We've got to stand together to do something with our country, or our grandchildren won't have anything. Our freedoms are being taken every day that we just sit back and watch. We can't watch anymore. We have to do something.
But like you said that the American people as a whole are afraid, and yet we have a bunch of hotheads out there saying, you know what, we're sick and tired of all the talk. We need to do something, but they want to actually start shooting. And we are asking the American patriots out there, the American citizens, do not shoot. Do not give them an excuse to come down on us with their boots. We do not need to cause a civil war or bloodshed. And I really believe, Chris, that George Soros, with Obama and Hillary's private backing, is going to try to cause a national incident so they can do that very thing and then give the United Nations an excuse to come in and federalize, internationalize all of our police and say, look, you either go along with the program or you will be rounded up and you will be held accountable because you're not following the dictates of the New World Order or the United Nations. They want to put the United Nations in charge of your local sheriff, your local police departments, your state troopers, your highway patrol. What can we do to tell the American people that if you keep on hiding behind your computers and getting on Facebook and, getting up on, the social media and you talk the talk but you're not willing to walk the walk, why was it that over 3,000 people did not come to Harney County the day after? I think there is power in mass, in the masses. Why did they not come to Harney County, Chris?
Probably because of the fear.
So basically, I hear you saying that the fear is going to be our undoing.
Well, people have got to learn to stand up and at least speak out. Maggie, I've had a lot of people say that I was a hero for just speaking what I had on my mind. And that right there is an indicator that the people are afraid. You should not be afraid to voice your opinion in the United States of America. You should not be able to speak your piece. You have the right to be heard. It's your First Amendment. People need to understand that. People need to study their Constitution. They need to figure out how they can go about being involved with their government instead of letting their government do whatever they want.
Well,
we need to have qualified people run for office. We need to get the corruption out of the government. It's not that I don't disagree with having government. I'm all for government. You have to have some kind of government, but there's no reason you have to have corrupt government. It doesn't have to be ran by dishonest people. It doesn't have to be ran by people that are just ripping the rest of the people off.
I agree. Yeah.
People get together.
Go ahead. Yeah.
People can get together and you can actually get some things accomplished. It's not always easy, but if you stand back and do nothing, then you really shouldn't be complaining.
I agree. And, folks, Chris is right. You can sit back there and be fearful, and you can allow this country to fall apart because you won't gather together in mass. And I don't mean violent mass and screaming and yelling and throwing bricks and attacking police officers and the horses they're riding. I mean getting together peacefully and saying, you know what? We're going to stop everything. We're not going to pay our taxes anymore. We're not going to allow the truckers need to get together with us and stop making deliveries to all of the cities. If we can all get together for 1 or 2 days and basically stop this country dead in its tracks until our elected officials get their act together, There was an article that was also in the Roseburg Beacon on the shootings, and it says, quote, with the Dallas shootings all over the news, now more than ever, police will see threats everywhere, and they will fear for their lives. It's important for us and for them to know that the risks they face today are the same threats that they faced a week ago and last year, and indeed much, much rarer than they were 10, 20, or 40 years ago. The police are not at war with us, and we don't need more militarization to solve this problem. We need more understanding. Chris, there is a quote I would like to give to you. It's by W. Cleon Clausen, who lived from 1913 until 2006. He was a university professor. He was an FBI agent. He was an author and founder of the American Center for Constitutional Studies. And this is what he said, quote, anyone who says the American Constitution is obsolete just because social and economic conditions have changed does not understand the real genius of the Constitution. It was designed to control something which has not changed and will not change, namely human nature. What do you have to say about that, Chris?
Well, it's true. It's true. The Constitution was set up for us by very, very intelligent people, and it still should be the way our country is ran. The people have to be part of their government.
So what do we do when we have the FBI coming to Harney County, intimidating people, pretending they're part of some militia, pretending they were people that were walking around your armory, because they first of all said that we were just coming to the armory. Oh, we thought we saw a deer, and we were following the deer, and they kept lying to you about who they really were. And then you were told by Steve Grafke and by your appointed sheriff to not tell the American people in your county that the FBI was there. So we see the lies intimidation. We see that the FBI director of the United States of America has been either threatened or intimidated into not doing his job. And then now we find out on the news today that the FBI agents that were involved with the investigation into Hillary's criminal activities were forced to sign a paper and sworn into secrecy. We already know the CIA is corrupt. What are we going to do about the FBI?
The only thing I can think of is expose them and try to get people to understand what's actually going on. You know, normal news media isn't reporting things in an accurate manner. What went on here in Harney County has not been reported accurately.
No, it hasn't been. You know, there's a guy that wrote into a newspaper. His name is Will Russell. He's with the Republic of Texas, and he lives in Porter, Texas, Porter. He wrote that FBI Director Comey should be gone. On July the every word that the FBI Director Comey spoke, I hope you did too. Many aspects of his puppet-like charade won't be covered here, but from an unbiased legal perspective, I noted the following, and I now paraphrase, quote, no case law exists, cute her, meaning Hillary, but that will not prevent someone else from being prosecuted for the same thing, unquote. And he goes on to say, Mr. Russell, really, yes, really, as we've now seen the same type of perverted justice applied hundreds of times using the so-called Patriot Act. Is this what was meant by, quote, liberty and justice for all? James Comey should resign pronto, immediately, yesterday. He is not only a miserable failure to the American people, but was to the multiple treasons of the entire Clinton crime family. And that would include Bill Clinton, Chelsea Clinton, her husband, and look into Chelsea Clinton's father's background, the criminal activities that he himself has also committed. So, Chris, what happened in your county is only the tip of the iceberg with what I think is going to happen in other counties across this nation. What say you?
I say you're correct. I say that if you think that this stuff only happens in little dinky Harney County and not any place else, that you're wrong. That you're misled. Because it is happening in all counties, all across this state, and every state you turn around, you talk to people that say, this is what's going on here. This is what's going on there.
Well, when we read what Will Russell, who's in the Republic of Texas, in Porter, Texas, were you aware of the fact that many states across the nation right now have multiple lawsuits going against the federal government because of the illegal land grab by the federal government and the BLM, that the Department of Forestry is in on this, and the fact that the American people, though, if all we do in isolated areas stand up, nothing's going to happen. They'll just thumb their finger at us. Don't you agree that what we need to do this is en masse? I'm talking about like the Million Man March or the Million Woman March. Don't we need to bring millions of people together in one place at one time?
Well, that would be good to do. I will say something right here. When you're talking about these BLM and Forest Service lands, if someone's having a problem with that, ask them to see a title or a deed to that land showing that it belongs to the federal government. Ask the Forest Service to show you a deed that says they have the authority to do whatever they want to, that they actually own the land. Ask the BLM if they actually own the land. On their very own sign, it says Bureau of Land Management. And then it says managing your public lands.
Right. So whether, depending upon people's opinion of whether or not the Bundys and their people should have been at your wildlife refuge, number one, they were told that they could go there as a safe place to demonstrate. Number two, the keys were left on the desk and the doors were left open. And number three, it is public land. They were actually beautifying the area while they were there. They were not really occupying it as much as they were basically protecting it and beautifying and taking care of it while they peacefully protested in a peaceful civil protest. And yet it was turned into something other than what it should have been in order to meet the agenda of the New World Order. And is that not what George Soros is planning to do at the Republican convention, where he's planning to help Black Lives Matter and the new Black Panther Party go in there and disrupt the Republican convention? Do they not do like what they did during the Vietnam War with the university students on the campuses, is they have their paid actors go in there and stir up trouble so therefore they can come down with their boot? Isn't what they did that in Harney County as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would not have believed it if I didn't live here. But there are obviously plants by the government where people are paid to come in and just cause problems. That's what the FBI was doing here. They were sneaking around, intimidating people, following people. I've had them follow me. I've had them, all kinds of things just to incite fear, to drive a wedge between people, to keep people in fear to where they don't trust anyone, and they divide and conquer in that manner. They make everybody afraid, or they try to.
Well, Chris, I want to thank you for coming up again for part 2 of this 2-part series on the Microeffect, and for sharing your concerns about what's happening in your county and how it's going to basically have a poison going across this country if we don't do something. I would like to invite you to come back again. Would that be possible?
Sure.
Okay, folks, this is a former fire chief. He's a hero for standing up, for resigning his position in Harney County because he would not play along to get along. He would not prostitute himself to the New World Order or to the illegal activities going on with Steve Grasky and the appointed Sheriff Ward in Harney County, Oregon. Folks, this is Maggie Rose. We'll be back next Tuesday here on the Microeffect at the Radio Broadcasting Network. And, folks, you have a really good weekend. Please pray for what happens at the conventions, both Democrat and Republican, and the days ahead, and that no further life is taken and nobody gets injured and people can come together and ending in peace and conversation. Thank you again, Chris. You have a really great weekend, you and your lady.
Okay, thank you.